Welcome to episode 4. In this episode, we'll be replacing this nasty old lounge roof hatch. Good morning. Right, so episode 4. Now we're going to be putting in a new roof hatch here. I don't really know what to expect. I've got to cut this out. This original sort of raised mounting flange here, and then figure out what we need to do to get the new one in. Okay, so this is what we've got. This is the original mounting flange, and then just on top of it sat this rotten wooden cover. Yeah, we want something more substantial, so this is what we have found. Now, I'm not buying brand new everything for this boat because, you know, you could spend more restoring a boat than it would cost you to build a new one. So this is a Houdini window made in the UK. This window is probably 45 years old, but it's been on a big Dutch barge, houseboat, outside in all weathers for all of that time, and look at the condition that it's in. It's still in remarkable condition. So quite looking forward to getting that in, but that'll be completely waterproof. That'll withstand all winds and weathers. Perfect for use out on the ocean or anywhere else really. The owner of the barge this came off only removed it so he could install double glazing because he was living aboard it, and it was you know, getting a lot of condensation, but that shouldn't be a problem to us. We're not going to spend very much time on this vessel in winter anyway, so yeah, let's get it in. Start by measuring it up. I want this window, I mean, it is roughly central, and we're going to make sure this one's central as well, so right. I'm not entirely sure how this goes, but we're soon going to find out. Right. 50 by 60. Well, that's easy. 50 by 60, and then a radius in the corners. So what's this hole? 51. Well, that's a pain. That means I'm going to have to do a bit of welding here, but that can't be helped. So the roof's a little bit deformed up here from years of people standing around on it and corrosion and pitting. So I'm going to have to straighten this. I'm going to have to flatten this out because this needs to fit in a flat surface. I think we're just going to have to start cutting and figure all that out as we go. Right, let's get the grinder. So this is what we've got so far. Now, the weld down the edge of this piece is absolutely massive. I'm not even sure I want to waste grinding wheels grinding it back. I'm tempted to just cut a bigger hole out here and then weld together a rim of exactly the right size and weld it in, and then bolt the window down onto that, because to try and make these edges good is going to be more difficult than just removing them and welding in a ring of steel around the edge. So I'll have a little think about that and come back in a minute. Okay, so what I've decided to do here, because of these really thick welds that I really don't want to grind away, I'm just going to cut those off, and then we're going to make a 5mm thick strip of steel which can sit over this edge, which will protrude about 1 centimetre around the outside of the hatch, and then we can weld that to the deck nice and flat. So let's give that a go. Well, we're getting somewhere with it. It's the correct width this way. It's 20mm too wide this way, and then I've left these because it needs those curves putting in the corners. So I'm just going to try and nibble these out, leaving as much of the curve as I can. And then we'll start to make a surround to weld over this hole. Let's just see if we can mark these holes in. That's a bit tight across there. There, it's all ground back. Probably just do one final tidy up of that, and then Fertan it, and then I'll go and cut this surround. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We've cut this surround out of this flat bar, and now we're just going to fill these corners with more strips of the flat bar until the corner is full, and then we can cut a curve out of the flat surround that we create. So now you can probably see what I'm getting at here. Okay, so I've filled the corner with material. And then we'll just cut the profile into the corner, but at least this way everything's going to be exactly the same thickness, depth around the edge, and the same type of steel. So just need to get all this welded up now. Much fun. Okay, so we've had to bring this all indoors because the wind is just blowing too much outside to be able to weld outside. So let's just get this all set up in here and tack weld it, and then give it a final weld. Quite a lot of welding to do here. Okay, so we're just going to try this surround for size, just to make sure that's correct before we go any further with the welding. Don't want it to be too tight, don't want it to be too loose really. Let's have a look. Okay, so about 3 or 4 mil of play in that direction, move 5 mil of play in that direction. And that's okay, because it gives us a little, it gives us, oh, I don't know, 2 or 3 degrees of adjustment if we get it in and we want to be sure that it's square. So we'll run with that. We'll maybe make the corners a little bit tighter when we grind those. So the way this works is the window sits into the frame from above, and then these bands go on from underneath and clamp it together. Looks pretty good to me. Let's carry on with the welding. Okay, we're just going to tack it again because this isn't really the material I should be welding on, but it's all I've got today, so let's tackle these in place. Got 2 mil gap between them so we can get a full weld. We can get a full weld in them because this is going to be exposed and I want it to be, solid. Good morning. Today's another day. Yesterday I welded this up, but unfortunately the battery died. So you didn't get the welding. You didn't get the welding, but there it is, it's not too bad. Looks nice and flat, that's the main thing. So what I need to do now is just grind off this excess weld, because this is all going to be visible on the deck. Once it's, because this sticks out around the circumference of the new window. So I need to grind this back, grind it flat so it's all presentable and we don't have to do too much to it when we come to paint it. So I'll grind this back and then we'll hold the window up to it, draw around it where we need to cut these curves on the corners and on the insides and start to work on that. And we're a little way off fitting this yet though. It was a much bigger job than I thought that it would be, as is the case with quite a lot of the little jobs that need doing on this boat. They look like they'll take you an hour and they take you 2 or 3 days. This is a classic 2 or 3 day job, given the time that I've got to spend on it, of course. All right, let's get stuck in. So it's time to hold this up against the window and yeah, start to mark it. I think there's some little gaps in the welds that I need to fill in, but I'm not going to do that until I've cut out what I don't need. Right. That's not going to work. Going to have to do it with these to start with. Pretty flat, it's not completely flat. It's got about a 2mm twist on it. Well, that's no problem, we can soon straighten that out. Bend that in a vise later. My tape. Take these off. Right. Looks pretty good. So we'll cut out these inner curves first. Does it fit? I wanted to make these corners a bit tighter than the edges because the frame was a little bit loose. And they are, that one is just a tiny bit too tight. It's like 1/4 of a millimetre too tight. So it's just about perfect, but I'll just run the grinding reel around the inside of all 4 corners and that'll just slip on there perfectly. Let's get rid of this. Right, let's try again. Beautiful. Look at that. That is perfect. Yeah. Right. Now I think I need to mark this curve around the outside of the corners. I'm going to need a divider, I think, for that. Let's go and see what I've got. Okay, now I got this little divider. This, I'm hoping it's just enough to make a mark on this metal, and then I can go over it with a pen. Not bad. That's fine. So yeah, now what we've got to do another day is go up on the roof, cut around this shape, get it all sat in at a nice position, because this needs to remain flat but the roof is slightly curved from left to right, so this will be stood up a little bit on the sides and this will be just proud of the surface. But yeah, we'll cut the shape in and then probably whilst we tack it, we'll fit the backing ring to this and clamp this in, so this is part of it, so it holds it nice and flat. Tack it in, cover that so we don't melt the glass, and yeah, then take the window out and do the final weld. That look good. Okay, we're just going to quickly run a flat wheel around this just to clean it up before we offer it up onto the roof tomorrow. Little flat wheel. Right, this is day 4 on this this lounge roof hatch. Man, this job, there's so many jobs on this boat where I look at him and I think it's 2 or 3 hours work and it's like a whole week's worth of work given how much time I have to spend. So yeah, this is day 4. I've probably spent about 10 hours in total on this so far, and so far all we've got to show for this is a hole. I mean, this is crazy. It's just so much marking up and messing about. Yesterday was horrendous weather, thunder and lightning, hailstones, pouring rain. It was sort of on and off, and I managed to go up and do a few things, but you know, really not very much. I've cut this strip. It's just to correct the shape of the hole in the roof, so it's a nice sort of oval and it matches that. So what we're going to do now is just weld this into place, and then we'll start to, offer this up and work out what spaces we need at the edge so that this sits nice and flat upon this curved roof. So let's get on with this. Yesterday I managed to cut this into a nice oval shape to match the ring that I've made to mount the porthole in. But at the front here, just because of the way I had to cut this out around that old hatch, it's sort of misshaped. So I've cut this infill piece, which is going to sit in there, and that will fix that shape. So let's just get this welded in. Terrible weather again, wind's blowing far too much, but not a lot we can do. Let's just see what we can achieve. Here we go. Okay, so this is what we've been doing. We've just been clamping that little strip up so that it's level with the deck, so that's going to be nice and smooth when it's finally welded and ground into position. So I'll just wait for the break in this rain, and then I'll quickly go and weld this up. I won't bother filming it because I just won't have time. So we've now welded that piece in and ground it back. It's very nice. A nice uniform shape there now. Now what we need to do is just offer this up to it, draw around it so we know where the weld is going to go around the outside. We've now cut the roof and prepared it for this surround, and now what we need to do is weld some thin strips of steel around the left and right of this surround, just to stand it up off of that curved deck, just enough to fill the gap. So I've cut some strips of 5 or 6mm steel there, and I'm just going to tack it to start with. Just tack it around this edge. There doesn't need to be any in the middle. That's going to be almost flush with the deck, just a weld thickness from the deck. And these are just going to come up to about here. And then what we'll do, we'll put it on the deck and we'll just scribe around this so we know what needs to be removed. So let's get this welded on. Wow, okay. Another job that took 10 times longer than I thought it would. So we spotted that little rim around the edge. And now I'm just going to complete that weld off camera. And then the next stage is scribing that onto the roof, grinding it back. Okay, so we just need to prepare the aperture in the roof for welding in that frame. Now I noticed when I was up on the roof, I could see that the roof was, it was all sort of not really straight. It was all sort of wibbly wobbly. And it's because there isn't any, where this piece has been chopped out, there isn't any supports across this way. So this was all sort of wobbly. So I've just clamped this piece in there, and I've got another one up here ready to clamp in there. And that will straighten this up so that when we then scribe, this is the ring, when we then scribe this ring onto it, it will be nice and flat. So that's what we're just working on at the moment. And again, I've robbed those two pieces of steel from this hole because all this is going to be come out and be thrown away. So we're just recycling. So, right, let's get and tack weld this in. We'll do proper welds later for this because we might need to move these if it's in the way of the window. Now I don't know whether you can see as I'm moving this clamp along, it's pulling this in all the way along. The whole of the roof is all sort of bendy. So we're just straightening this up. Right, now it's time to scribe this ring on the top. Let's go out and do that. So we've had some rough weather these last couple of weeks. Probably had about 5, I don't know, 8 or 10 maybe days of semi-decent weather at the beginning of this month. And then it's just got really windy and wet. It's been really difficult to do anything outdoors on this. I can see this job taking me a full 2 weeks, and look at it, it's just, you know, it seems so simple. Anyway, that's what we've got to work with. So now I think we're just going to scribe around this. It'll just give us an idea of where we need to smooth it out. Now maybe you can see the method in my madness. So just cut this shape into it. So that when that's on the roof now, there's a slight curve to it. But the top surface will be completely flat. Now I think all we can do now is, it's pouring down with rain out there again, I think all we can do now is just treat the surface up there with Fertan, clean this up, and then as soon as we get a dry day we can go out and weld it. Until that day comes, I think we're stuck. So we're down to the final stage of getting this hatch in. I've spot welded I spot welded it into place whilst the glass was in it, so that we knew it was dead flat as I was spot welding it down. And the profile I ground into it's pretty good. It's pretty sweet. Didn't need to adjust that. I needed a bit of a gap for the weld anyway, so yeah, it's looking pretty good. Just need to get that welded up, and then we can treat that, fit the window, and move on to the next job. There'll be a lot of poking around inside it later on to make all of this perfect, but for now that surround is sort of structurally sound. Right, let's get on with the welding. This is really difficult to weld in these conditions. The wind's blowing a hoolie out here again, but we've had 2 weeks of this, so I'm just going to have to do the best I can. I've got this screen here just to act as a windbreak, and I've got my leather mat so I can sort of put this around the area just to shield it a bit further if we need to. But right, let's go. See what that looks like. Yeah, that's looking nice. If I could do all the welds like that, well, it'd be a miracle for a start. I never understand why they make these. We got a fire down there. It's just all the nasty blackjack burning off. But yeah, I never understand why they make these guns with this plastic bit. So this is a 200 amp welder, and yeah, they've just got this rubbish plastic bit here that's all melting, burning, and the whole thing's a load of rubbish. I've ordered the MB25, the next size up. Hopefully it won't happen with that one. Complete junk. Complete junk. I'm getting so many problems with this tip and wires welding itself to the copper electrode. The bloody shrouds are melting. It's just absolute junk. Seems to be happy at the lower range of its setting. Hopefully the new gun will avoid all these problems. Anyway, I'm going to continue this. I'm not even going to film it, but I'll just show you the weld that we've done so far. So, there's a weld so far, not too bad. If it weren't for this crappy gun, we'd just continue with that. But anyway, I'm going to do this off the camera. Catch you later. Okay, so we finally welded all the way around there. Oh, there's one of my better welds. I'm not a welder, just a hobbyist. Now we're just going to grind this back and then probably Fertan it overnight and tomorrow prime it and fit the window. And then that can stay until a later stage. Okay, we're just going to run one more tool around that, the die grinder, because the die grinder worked quite well when I did the gas bottle box to sort of profile that weld, so it was a nice sort of even sweep all the way around. And then, you know, ultimately this is just going to have some filler run around to make it smooth and beautiful before we put some paint on. So just go and get the die grinder. So we've now run the die grinder around it. It's just put this sort of chamfer into it evenly all the way around with the profile of the die grinder bit. So that just means there won't be any high spots in the weld when we put a bead of fill around there and paint it in the end. So yeah, that's this job almost done. We just need to treat this. I think I'll just do it with Fertan overnight, just so we don't get any rust. And then tomorrow, wash that down, let it dry in the sun, prime it, get the window in, and then move on to the next job. Can't wait, this has taken 2 weeks. It's not entirely my fault, the weather's been complete crap. And it's an outdoor job, so it's really held me up, but we've got a heat wave inbound apparently, so maybe we can speed up a bit now. So the Fertan is cured on this. We're just going to give this a little scrub and then let it dry. It's really quite warm out here today. Let it dry and then just put some primer on and get this hatch fitted. Then we can move on to the next job. Here we are. Just let that dry now and we'll give it a spray. There we are. Pretty happy with that. And just let that dry and we'll fit the hatch. So we're going to go around this with this W seal stuff again. As I say, this is rubbish really, it's just something that was lying around in my workshop, but it's perfectly good to make a temporary seal on this. We'll Sikaflex it in when we make the final fit, but before we do that we need to spray paint the whole boat, so for now we're just going to use this temporary seal. That's some rubbish this is. Don't know why they bother making this stuff. It loses its stickiness. You know, even if you put it around your door after a year or two, it's all falling off. It's just been sat in the workshop doing nothing. Beautiful. Look at that. Really happy with that. Lovely. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.